Both begin the journey.
Every move begins with a choice.
Welcome to Chess with Nipuna.
Bonsoir, welcome. I am in the Paris Opera House, where Paul Morphy and Duke Karl played the opera game in 1858.
Paul Morphy was more than a chess master. He was a genius whose brilliance dazzled the world. History remembers him as the pride and the sorrow of chess, the pride for his unmatched brilliance and the sorrow for his brief, shining career. And now, I invite Nipuna to explain and show us the opera game.
The opera game is one of the most famous, keen, and instructive games in chess history.
White was played by Paul Morphy, and black was played by Duke Karl. This game is remembered as a masterpiece that is showing how development and regrouping can lead to a swift victory. Morphy begins with pawn to e4, striking at the center. Duke Karl replies with pawn to e5, meeting the challenge and fighting for the center. Morphy develops his knight to f3, a natural move attacking the center. Duke Karl replies with pawn to d6, known as the Philidor defense. Solid but passive, blocking his own pieces. In the context of opening theory, Paul Morphy proceeded with the move d4. Black's best move here should have been exd4, but Duke Karl tried a novelty with bishop g4. I studied this position using both computer analysis and Bobby Fischer's commentary. Stockfish 17, Dep 50, doesn't consider bishop into g4 a blunder, mistake, or inaccuracy move, but it prefers other good candidate moves such as exd4, knight to d7, knight to c6, knight to f6, or queen into e7. Fischer, however, called bishop g4 a weak move, suggesting that developing the knights would have been stronger and it should be knight d7. He explained that by playing bishop g4, Duke Karl allowed Paul Morphy to seize control of the center. At this point, Morphy gains the upper hand with the move dxe5, placing black at a tactical disadvantage. Although Stockfish does not evaluate this move as immediately problematic, Bobby Fischer analyzed the sequence dxe5, dxe5, queen xd8, king xd8, knight xe5, and further cited Wilhelm Steinitz's commentary, noting that white retains the advantage even in an endgame with the two bishops. Steinitz illustrated the line: dxe5, bishop xf3, gxf3, dxe5, queen xd8, king xd8, f4, knight f6, fxe5, knight xe4, bishop g2, knight c5, defending the b7 pawn, followed by b4. In practice, however, Duke Karl chose bishop xf3, and Morphy, instead of following these theoretical continuations, captured the bishop with his queen. After Duke Karl replied with dxe5, Morphy developed his bishop to c4, creating a direct threat of checkmate with queen xf7. Duke Karl plays knight f6, blocking the queen's line to f7. Paul Morphy responds with queen b3, and Karl continues with queen e7. At this stage, the position offers white a slight advantage, evaluated by Stockfish at plus 2.00. Recognizing the importance of maintaining his queen for the eventual winning attack, Paul Morphy avoids immediate plans such as queen xb7 and instead develops with knight c3, reinforcing the center. In reply, Duke Karl plays c6, as black can no longer force a queen exchange and must therefore defend the b7 pawn. Paul Morphy played bishop g5, after which Duke Karl responded with b5. Stockfish evaluates this move as an inaccuracy, granting white a significant advantage. Bobby Fischer also noted that b5 allows white the opportunity for a brilliant sacrifice with knight xb5, which Morphy immediately executed. Duke Karl replied with cxb5, but according to Stockfish this constituted a second inaccuracy. The preferable continuation for black would have been queen b4+. Morphy then played bishop xb5+, placing black in a difficult position. At this point, black is effectively in Zugzwang, as any available move worsens his situation and accelerates white's attack. Duke Karl played knight bd7, but the knight was completely pinned, allowing Paul Morphy to seize the advantage with queenside castle. With both the bishop on b5 and the rook on d1 targeting d7, black's position became precarious. Castling was no longer a viable option, as queenside castling would immediately lose. After bishop a6 check king c7, queen to b7 delivers checkmate. Thus, Duke Karl was forced to play rook d8. Morphy then captured the knight on d7 with his rook, which Karl recaptured with his rook on d8. Morphy followed by bringing his rook from h1 to d1, perfectly reinforcing the attacking pressure. At this stage, Stockfish evaluates the position at plus 6.3 in favor of white. Bobby Fischer likewise confirmed that white's victory was already assured, noting that after black's 10th move, cx b5, the positional weaknesses and loss of time made resistance impossible, rendering the current situation both natural and unavoidable. This sequence completes and seals the Zugzwang. Duke Karl plays queen e6, and according to Stockfish the evaluation suddenly rises to plus 36.4 in favor of white, though alternative lines beginning with queen d6 would have limited the advantage to around plus 7.0. Paul Morphy then continues with bishop x d8+, after which Duke Karl commits his first decisive blunder with knight x d7. This misstep allows Paul Morphy to execute a brilliant queen sacrifice, queen b8 check. Following knight x b8, Paul Morphy delivers the final blow with rook d8, achieving checkmate. Stockfish shows that Paul Morphy played almost perfectly, with 99% accuracy and only a tiny average error of 4 center pawns. In contrast, Duke Karl scored 88% accuracy, with 2 inaccuracies, 1 mistake, and a much higher average error of 45 center pawns.
And so, here in the Paris Opera House, we honor Paul Morphy's brilliance.
Hope you enjoyed the lesson. See you in the next lesson of Chess with Nipuna.